Hey Steph, so the title of your recent upload caught my attention because I happen to be a member of the Green Party in the state of California. And while I definitely appreciate um, the insights and the, obviously well thought out ideas and opinions that you presented, especially the psychoanalytic insights, which I thought were very telling. I have to disagree with some of what you said. Um, and, the term environmentalist I don't really like, or environmentalism, because it seems to emphasize that we ought to protect um, the whole despite the individual parts. So I prefer the term ecologist, where an ecosystem is something um, that contains individual beings, individual creatures that live in community with one another in sort of a mutually enhancing way. And environmentalism seems to neglect that, so I prefer to be called an ecologist, but that's sort of a moot point. Um, you brought up these three distinctions between the victim, the perpetrator, and the savior. And for an ecologist or a member of the Green Party, the victim is Gaia, Mother Earth, or according to James Lovelock and Lynn Margulis's Gaia hypothesis, the self-organizing, self-maintaining um, system that is the planetary ecosystem as a whole. Um, that's the victim. The perpetrator would be the industrial growth model of civilization, or the industrial mindset in general, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means. And the part that I disagree with is you said the savior is the state. And I realize that Greens obviously tend towards a more socialist agenda. However, in my estimation, the real change that has to happen has nothing to do with the state, with giving the government more power to regulate industry. If we're going to heal the wound which has been inflicted upon the planet by the industrial mindset, um, we need transformation on the individual level, a transformation in the consciousness of individuals and of the values of individuals. Um, and I think the basic change that I would like to see, and that I think is necessary if we want to avoid complete ecological collapse, because we are in the midst of a mass extinction, which I'll get to later as well. I think what needs to happen is that this artificial divide that separates humanity from the rest of the natural world, from the rest of the earth, needs to be, brought back together. Because the problem with the industrial mindset is that it forces us to conceive of the rest of the earth community of sentient beings and the rest of the ecosystem of which we are a part as a mere store of resources or collection of objects which have no value in and of themselves until they are taken into the human economy, produced and consumed and sold on the market. So it's the human market which is supposed to determine the value of something, which was prior to human production, a natural entity. Um, because, in my view, this industrial mindset neglects the fact that, as Thomas Berry says, ecologist Thomas Berry, that the earth is not a collection of objects, but a communion of subjects. We are part of a community of life. And certainly human beings are the most, as far as we know, or at least human beings appear to be the most complex organisms on this planet. But that doesn't mean that other life is not as valuable or should not be respected, or that it doesn't have certain rights of its own. Now, certainly human rights can't be applied to other forms of life. There are, though I would say, rights of trees, rights of fish, rights of rivers that need to be established in an individual way based on, um, you know, rational, reasonable discussion and debate among human beings about how best to maintain the balance of the ecosystem as a whole. Now, certainly nature doesn't always remain balanced. There are mass extinctions, there are catastrophic events, and have been way before humanity came onto the scene. But the last 200 years, 250 years or so of industrialization have brought us to a point today where we are in the midst of the largest mass extinction in 65 million years, since an asteroid destroyed everything on Earth bigger than a chipmunk. 20 to 50,000 species go extinct every year, according to most academic biological estimates. The background rate of extinction is about one species every 1 to 5 years, to give you a sense of how many thousands of times we are above the normal rate of extinction. And this is due to not only pollution, which since the 70s we've certainly curtailed the amount of pollution, at least particulate pollution, the kind of pollution that produces smog, even though a lot of cities still are coughing in their own pollution. We certainly reduced pollution, but greenhouse gases are still being released at record amounts, and the level of greenhouse gas release is increasing daily. And so climate change is a major issue, and what's driving these species into extinction is that we are destroying their habitats. We're overfishing the oceans, deforestation, and so forth. And so this isn't just an issue because we should, I feel, care about the value of non-human life. It's an issue even for the self-interest of humanity, because when the diversity of an ecosystem is lessened, that ecosystem becomes less stable and more susceptible to collapse. And we depend on other non-human economies, exchanges of energy, and so we should, out of our own self-interest, be concerned about the current crisis which is underway. And I don't think humanity is inherently abusive. I think that the industrialized mindset is a particular cultural set of assumptions that we don't necessarily have to assume. But of course, altering our values would involve, curtailing this idea that we have to continually progress. Now, you talked about living out myths as sort of, expressing psychological traumas of some sort. I think that the myth of progress falls right into that same category and can be criticized in the same way. Technological advancement and innovation is a wonderful thing, but to assume that somehow that is the savior, I think, is a mythological fantasy, because for every technological advance we make, we gain that much more responsibility for our use of these technologies. We can destroy the entire planet with our technologies at this point, and the problem is that our technological capabilities have far outstripped our moral responsibility. The capability that we have as a species to act in a united fashion in order to use these technologies in a responsible and appropriate way. What's really, I think, important to realize about our ecological problems is that ecosystems don't respect the artificial national boundaries that human beings draw around themselves. Ecological issues are global because the planet is a single self-sustaining organism. So to meet the challenges that we are faced with due to this ecological crisis, we have to act as a global community. I'm not suggesting that we need some kind of world government or world state in order to do this. Again, I think the transformation has to happen within each individual, such that we would value taking care of the whole, even while we also take care of our individual lives and our own communities. So I definitely appreciate your very reasonable approach to talking about these issues. But I look forward to your response. And yeah, thanks for listening.